Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Today we are continuing on with the fanfiction From Research to Real, written by me, Beauty and the Bookshelf, and today's chapters are 4, 5, and 6. Chapter 4, The Interview. The cafe was calm, but not totally quiet. A few scattered tables were occupied by people with laptops or books, the occasional low conversation rising and fading under the hum of indie music and espresso machines. It was the kind of place Bakugo didn't mind. Not too loud, not trying too hard, and far enough off campus to feel like a small escape. They found a booth by the window, not because it had good light or whatever, but because it was tucked in a corner. Less traffic and less noise. Kirishima slid into the seat across from him like they did this all the time. Like this wasn't an assignment. Like it wasn't weird. He leaned forward slightly, forearms resting on the table, relaxed and easy. Bakugo pulled out his notebook and a black pen. Bakugo wrote the date and underlined it. Then, interview with Red Riot. Topic, influencer authenticity, vulnerability as performance. Kirishima shifted in his seat, hands clasped loosely on the table. I don't get why I'm this nervous, he admitted, voice a little tight. Bakugo raised his eyebrows. You post every damn day online. For who knows how many people. How come talking to just one guy has you this twisted up? Kirishima chuckled nervously, rubbing the back of his neck. Guess it's different. Online, I'm not really talking to anyone. It's mostly just me putting my thoughts out there, like tossing a message in a bottle. I don't expect a crowd to find it, but if it helps someone, well, that's a bonus. Bakugo snorted, about to brush it off, but Kirishima's quiet honesty caught him off guard. He blinked, pausing for a moment. Sharp eyes softened, though he quickly masked it with a scowl. So, Red Riot. Kirishima's expression shifted immediately. Hey, call me Kirishima. It's not fair I know your name and you don't know mine. Bakugo blinked, then smirked. Alright, Kirishima. How did you come up with Red Riot anyway? Kirishima relaxed, a genuine smile spreading. Honestly, it's a nickname I got back in middle school. Came from my rock-solid determination or something cheesy like that. Felt like it stuck, so I ran with it for the channel, red for obvious reasons, motioning to his hair. He shrugged, eyes flicking to Bakugo with a little amusement. Plus, it sounded cooler than just Kirishima, right? Bakugo tapped his pen against the paper. You post all kinds of stuff, right? Exercise clips, motivational talks, even those day-in-the-life videos. Kirishima nodded, a bit cautious, but still easy. Yeah, I like mixing it up. Keeps things real, I guess. Bakugo's eyes narrowed slightly, voice low. But some of your most watched videos, they're the ones where you're like crying, like really vulnerable. Doesn't that ever embarrass you? Kirishima blinked, caught off guard. For a moment he was quiet. Then he shrugged, a small genuine smile playing at his lips. Not really. I guess it's just how I'm feeling in the moment. If I'm honest about that, then maybe other people will feel the same way too. Nobody's happy all the time, right? Bakugo didn't answer, just nodded slightly and wrote something down. Kirishima watched him for a second. What exactly is this assignment about? He asked, the tone casual but curious. Bakugo's pen stilled. He didn't look up. Cultural relevance. Personal resonance. Something about current trends. That's vague as hell. Welcome to college, Bakugo muttered. Kirishima laughed, and Bakugo hated that it made his shoulders loosen a bit. The rest of the interview passed in a steady rhythm, Bakugo asking questions, Kirishima answering easily, sometimes even leaning in like he forgot it was an assignment. Bakugo kept waiting for him to slip, to say something too curated, but it never came. Later that night, Bakugo sat hunched over his notebook, scowling down at the words he'd already rewritten twice. Nobody's happy all the time. I don't expect a crowd to find it. If it helps someone, that's a bonus. It was pissing him off, the way it didn't sound fake. He'd come into this ready to dismantle this whole thing. Influencers, authenticity, all of it. He was supposed to prove it was all just a performance. So why couldn't he stop replaying the sound of Kirishima's voice in his head? The pen hovered above the paper. Then his phone buzzed. Red Riot. Hey, thanks again for today. Hope the interview stuff helped. If you ever want to follow up or just hang out, I'm around. Blushing emoji. Bakugo stared at the message for a long second. No pressure, no bullshit. Just that same tone that he'd had the entire time. Honest, open, and too real. He didn't reply, just locked the screen and set the phone down a little too hard and went back to his notes. Though now his handwriting was a little slower, and he couldn't stop thinking about that smile. Chapter 5. The follow-up. Bakugo told himself it was for the article. That the only reason he opened their messages again, the only reason his thumb hovered over the keyboard like it wasn't that big of a deal. He had a couple of follow-up questions, that was all. Professional, efficient, not pathetic. His fingers moved before he could overthink it. Bakugo, got a few things I didn't get to ask last time. You around this week? He stared at the screen, jaw tight, pulse jumping, for no good reason. It was stupid how fast the typing bubbles popped up. Red Riot. Yeah, totally. Another interview? Eyeball emoji. Bakugo scowled at the emoji like it personally offended him. Bakugo. Yeah, interview. Need more content for the article. There was a beat before the reply came through. Red Riot. Sure thing, man. Want to meet at the same place or mix it up a little? Bakugo hesitated. The cafe had been easy. Neutral ground, but the thought of going somewhere else, somewhere less formal, made something in his chest twist. Bakugo. Same place is fine. Tomorrow? Red Riot. You got it. Thumbs up emoji. Bakugo tossed the phone onto his bed and flopped back beside it, exhaling hard, like he'd done something physically demanding. He told himself it was fine. Research. Data gathering. Just him and some questions. So why the hell did it feel like he'd just asked someone on a date? The next afternoon, Bakugo showed up 10 minutes early. Not because he was eager, hell no, but because being late would have made it look like he cared, and he didn't, obviously. He claimed the same corner booth at the cafe, tossed his notebook down, and stared at the half-empty page from the last time. The words looked stiff now, detached, like someone else had written them. He was halfway through pretending to review his questions when the door chimed. Kirishima walked in, hair still bright enough to catch the light, grin easy as ever. He waved when he spotted Bakugo, the kind of wave that made other people glance over like his friendliness had its own gravity. Hey, didn't think you'd beat me here, Kirishima said, sliding into the seat across from him. Bakugo grunted. I don't like wasting time. Kirishima laughed, low and warm. Right, the whole efficient journalist vibe. Bakugo flipped his notebook open, refusing to admit the sound did something to him. This isn't a vibe, it's an assignment. Sure, Kirishima said, leaning on one elbow. So, what's the big follow-up? Bakugo glanced down at his notes, looking for the safest question on the page. Walk me through a normal day. When do you decide what to post? Kirishima perked up. Oh, that's easy. I usually start with morning clients, then I'll hit the gym for my own workout, and after that I'm either filming content or helping someone with training. Sometimes I just record stuff on the way home. It depends on the day. Bakugo scribbled something that barely resembled words. So you don't schedule your content? Not really. Feels fake to force it. Kirishima laughed at himself, rubbing the back of his neck. Algorithms hate me enough as it is, so I just do my own thing. Bakugo's pen hesitated mid-sentence. You care about that? Algorithms and views? Kirishima shrugged. I notice it, yeah, but I'm not going to change myself for the numbers. He said it like it was obvious, like the world was simple. He said it like it was obvious, like the world was that simple. Bakugo clicked his pen once. Twice. Tch, must be nice, he muttered, and immediately buried his face back into his notes before Kirishima could ask what he meant. Kirishima only grinned wider, totally unbothered. You know, you're a lot quieter than I expected. I'm not here to entertain you, Bakugo said, but the corner of his mouth twitched, traitorous. The notebook sat forgotten between them for a while as they talked about nothing in particular, the kind of small, aimless chatter Bakugo usually ignored. Hours slipped by unnoticed, and somewhere along the way, the rigid structure of the interview had quietly collapsed. Hey, Kirishima said suddenly, leaning back, stretching. Since we're already out, want to grab something to eat? Bakugo froze for a heartbeat, caught somewhere between irritation and curiosity. Then, with a reluctant grunt, he said, Fine, but don't think this makes you less annoying. Kirishima only laughed, light and easy. I'd be worried if I stopped annoying you. He shot Bakugo a playful look, one eyebrow raised. Besides, I think you secretly like it. Bakugo scowled, turning his face away. Shut up. They walked side by side down the street, the city's hum blending into a background neither of them really noticed. Bakugo kept his arms crossed, trying not to pay much attention to how easy it felt just being near Kirishima. The diner was small and cozy, neon signs glowing faintly through the windows. Kirishima slid into the booth across from Bakugo, hands clasped loosely on the table, giving him a grin that was entirely too relaxed. So, what are you thinking? Burgers, fries, something crazy? Bakugo muttered, Whatever's fast. Though he couldn't stop himself from glancing at the menu anyway. Kirishima's eyes flicked up, catching the shadow of a frown. You always this grumpy when you eat, or is it me? Fuck off, Bakugo said, but there was a faint twitch at the corner of his mouth. They ordered, and for a while, neither felt the need to fill the quiet with anything heavy. Kirishima talked about his day at the gym, clients who couldn't keep up with push-ups, a dumb video idea that totally flopped, a small win when someone finally hit their goal. Nothing profound, but it felt easy, real. Bakugo found himself actually listening, not scribbling notes or thinking of follow-up questions. For the first time that day, he felt the edges of the assignment blur into something else entirely. Kirishima popped a fry into his mouth and chewed thoughtfully. So, do you always glare this much at food, or is it just my company? Bakugo shot him a glare, muttering, Shut up. Kirishima laughed, letting his grin linger. I'm just saying, it's fun watching you get all serious over fries. Bakugo turned his gaze back to his plate, pretending to ignore him, but the heat creeping up to his ears betrayed him. Careful, Kirishima added, leaning slightly closer, voice playful. You keep looking like that, and I might start thinking you actually like my company. Bakugo froze for half a second, then muttered, Ch, like I'd choose to hang around with you. Quit saying weird shit. I mean, don't get me wrong, Kirishima continued, eyes twinkling. I'm enjoying myself too, but I guess you already noticed that, huh? Bakugo's jaw tightened, but he didn't look away this time. After the plates were cleared, Kirishima leaned forward slightly, hands resting on the edge of the table. His smile softened, less teasing. I'm glad we did this. Feels easy, you know? He paused, as if testing the waters, then added, And stop me if I'm reading this wrong, but tonight was really fun. I'd like to take you out again, like a real date, not starting with an interview. What do you think? Bakugo blinked, caught entirely off guard, the notebook long forgotten in his bag. He opened his mouth to say something, but the corner of his mouth twitched, betraying a small, reluctant smile he couldn't stop. Ch, we'll see, he muttered, and Kirishima's grin widened just a little, knowing that at least he'd gotten a foot in the door. Chapter 6. Something else entirely. Bakugo's apartment felt too quiet when he walked in. He dropped his bag by the door, kicked his shoes off harder than necessary, and muttered something about the damn lights being too bright. The notebook landed on his desk with a dull thud, opened to a page filled with notes that suddenly looked like they belonged to someone else. He told himself to work, to just sit down, type up what he'd gotten from the interview, and start forming it into something that resembled a draft. That was the plan. Clean, simple, and efficient. But every time he looked at the blank document on his laptop, his mind wandered somewhere else, to the sound of Kirishima's laugh echoing across the diner booth, the stupid way his hair caught the light when he leaned forward, the warmth that sat in Bakugo's chest long after he'd said, "We'll see. Focus, damn it," he muttered. The cursor blinked at him like it was mocking him. After a few minutes, he gave up pretending. His hand moved before he could stop it, opening a new tab. Kirishima's channel. Research, he told himself. Background work. Nothing more. He clicked on a video at random. Kirishima was in a gym, laughing as he failed spectacularly to balance on a yoga ball. Kirishima grinning through the frame like he didn't care that he looked ridiculous. Bakugo had seen this one before, back when he was first preparing for the interview. He'd called it strategic authenticity in his notes, like that label made sense of it. Now, watching it again, that explanation felt like crap. There wasn't anything strategic about the way Kirishima snorted mid-laugh, or how he fell right out of frame, still smiling. It just felt real. He hated how that word kept circling back. Bakugo shut the laptop with more force than necessary, and he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed tight. This was supposed to be easy. Interview the influencer, write the analysis, hand in the paper. But now all he could think about was the way Kirishima had looked at him across the table, open, steady, unguarded in a way that Bakugo couldn't begin to understand. He let out a slow breath, pressing a hand against his forehead. "You're such an idiot," he muttered, half to himself, half to the ghost of that grin that still burned into his head. His phone buzzed once on the desk. Just a notification, nothing from Kirishima. Still, Bakugo stared at the screen for a moment longer than he should have before flipping it face down. "We'll see, huh?" he muttered, quieter this time, then got up, turned off the light, and left the blank document open on the screen. Time passes. Bakugo stared at the blinking cursor like it had personally wronged him. He'd been trying to write for nearly an hour and hadn't written a single usable sentence. His notebook sat open beside his laptop, scribbled with half-thoughts, crossed-out observations, and one line he refused to admit was a compliment. He laughs with his whole damn face. Stupid. He pushed back from the desk, arms crossed as he glared up at the ceiling. Even a day later, he could still feel warmth, the diner, the teasing, the invitation. Kirishima leaned in just a little too close, smiling like Bakugo was someone easy to be around. It was irritating. It was distracting. He huffed and snapped his laptop halfway closed just to stop the cursor's smug blinking. His brain was buzzing, full of static, and none of it was the academic kind. Fine, whatever. If he couldn't write, he could at least gather more material, more structure, more data to focus on instead of the way Kirishima had looked at him across the booth. He grabbed his phone before he could overthink it. "Bakugo, need more for the article. You free tomorrow?" He stared at the message a second too long, then tossed the phone on his desk like it had burned him. It buzzed almost immediately. Kirishima, "Yeah! When and where? Just tell me, man. I'm so in." Bakugo clicked his tongue, ignoring the way his stomach flipped. He typed back only, "Same cafe. Short, neutral, professional. Totally not a second date. Right? Was dinner a first date?" He shoved his phone in his pocket and forced himself back to the laptop, but the cursor still blinked like an accusation. Time passes. Bakugo slid into the cafe booth near the window, notebook in hand, pen ready. All the props of someone in control. The soft hum of the espresso machine, the faint strains of indie music. The cafe was the same as always. Kirishima showed up 2 minutes early, bright and easy, sliding into the seat across from him with a warm grin. "Hey, man," he said, brushing hair from his eyes. "Round 3? "It's not rounds," Bakugo muttered. "I just need more information." "Sure," Kirishima said, smile unfazed. "Whatever you need." They started out normal, follower demographics, sponsored content, scheduling strategies. Kirishima talked with his whole body, hands moving, voice animated. Bakugo took notes, pretending he wasn't watching the way Kirishima's eyes crinkled when he got excited. And then, like always, something loosened in the quiet between questions. Maybe it was too much eye contact. Maybe it was the lingering warmth of yesterday. Maybe Bakugo's brain just didn't know how to shut up around him. But what came out of Bakugo's mouth was absolutely not what he'd meant to ask.
You ever get tired of being Red Riot?
Kirishima blinked, caught off guard. Tired?
Yeah,
Bakugo said, sharper than he planned.
Posting all the time, putting your life out there for everyone to pick apart. You ever wish you could just turn it off?
Kirishima leaned back, thinking. Sometimes, he admitted, but it's not like I'm pretending. It's just a louder version of me, I guess. That question shouldn't have irritated him, but it did. Bakugo clicked his pen hard enough that the barista looked over.
Must be nice,
he muttered. Kirishima tilted his head. Nice?
Being so damn sure of who you are, even when it's embarrassing.
Kirishima's smile softened. Well, isn't everyone embarrassing? You just get used to it. Bakugo looked away, jaw tight. He'd rather swallow a fork than admit how much that hit, because it wasn't just that Kirishima wasn't fake, it was that Bakugo was. Not influencer fake, just in the way he hid behind every glare, every clipped word, every excuse that kept people at arm's length. And now Kirishima was sitting across from him like seeing past all of that wasn't a problem at all.
Anyway,
Bakugo muttered, forcing his pen to move.
That's enough for today.
Kirishima nodded, gathering his things. Cool, this was fun. Bakugo scowled.
It's not. It's research.
Sure, Kirishima said with a grin. That was way too knowing. See you soon? Bakugo's throat felt tight.
Yeah, whatever.
Kirishima waved as he left, cheerful as ever. Bakugo didn't breathe until the door shut behind him. He replayed the conversation the whole walk back, furious with himself for asking something real, furious with Kirishima for answering gently, furious with the heat curling low in his chest every time he thought about that soft smile. By the time he got inside his apartment, he felt wrung out. He sat at his desk, opened his laptop, stared at the blank document. Still nothing. The cursor blinked evenly, patient and infuriating. He slammed the laptop shut too loudly.
Shit,
he muttered.
This is stupid.
His phone buzzed on his desk. Kirishima, send me the draft when you're ready. Or if you need another mini interview, I'm always down. Grinning emoji. Bakugo turned his phone face down and let his head drop back against the chair. This was getting complicated, and he wasn't sure that he hated it. All right, friends, thank you so much for joining me for those 3 chapters. I hope that you will come back and join me for the next video. It's going to be the finale or wrap up or whatever you want to say, and it's going to be chapters 7, 8, and 9. So I do hope that you will come back and join me for the end of the fic, and if you do, I'll see you next time.